Oh dear God, this was awful. I can confidently say now that the fourth phase of the MCU has been pretty trash. After seeing Thor Love and Thunder, there are no questions left hanging around in the air. The fourth phase of the MCU has been terrible and it's probably gonna be terrible until it's over. Literally the only movie that was even enjoyable at all was Spider-Man No Way Home, and that's because the premise of that movie literally was fail-proof. There's no way you can nostalgia bait all the nerds out there by bringing back all three of the Spider-Men and not have everybody like it. Because to be honest, the movie wasn't that great. It was built on a premise that made no sense. They could have just sat down and had a conversation and the whole movie would have been solved. So I'm not going to count Spider-Man No Way Home as a plus for Marvel Phase 4. Because between Black Widow, Shang-Chi, Eternals, Doctor Strange and the Multiverse of Madness, and this latest Thor movie, the best we got was barely scratching the surface of mediocre, and the worst was the equivalent of like actual dog crap. Eternals was unbearable. I couldn't even sit through that movie. And when it comes to the shows, Marvel just has no idea what they're even doing. They're just throwing everything at the wall, hoping that something sticks, but nothing has. So they might have made some money off the shows, but there's literally no enjoyment to be found in any of them. There's really no way you can look at Phase 4 and say, oh yeah, they're heading in a good direction. Okay, they're clearly not. They have some problems, something's going on. And in this video, I'm gonna try to pin down why Phase 4 is just utterly failing and collapsing the Marvel Cinematic Universe in front of the entire public's eye. Back in Phase 1, the good old days of the MCU, during the simpler times, things were pretty good. Everything was running smooth. They were releasing about one movie a year, and they all had a clear narrative, and they were all clearly building up to a nice cool Avengers movie. Everything made sense, it was all fun, and when we got to the Avengers movie, it was pretty awesome. That's one of my favorite movies. And then Phase 2, they upped the ante a little bit. They started releasing 2 movies a year, and then it all ended with Captain America Civil War, and it was pretty cool. They brought in the Russos, and so the MCU machine was working pretty well. Then in Phase 3, they were building towards Endgame and this big old Infinity War and stuff, and at this point, things were going really well. It was all working, and most of the movies were dictated by the narrative that the MCU was trying to tell. If they wanted to introduce the quantum realm to save everybody in Avengers Endgame, they had the Ant-Man and the Wasp movie take place. If they wanted to have Captain Marvel tie into whatever is happening in Avengers Endgame, even though the movie sucked, the story still dictated the reason that the movie came out. Now, we move into Phase 4 and Disney has their big new streaming service and they want Kevin Feige to give them a bunch of shows and movies, so now it's the business model that's dictating what shows and movies Marvel releases, and that's showing because in the past year they've released 5 movies. Since Black Widow, they've had 5 movies and 6 TV shows, and now 7 with Miss Marvel. That's too many, okay? And they're trying to tie them all together and still do the same thing that they were doing in phases 1 through 3, but it's just not working. They're spreading themselves too thin at the base, and I don't think the conclusion that they're building to, if there even is a conclusion at all, is going to be that satisfying, because the story that they're telling is not dictating what movies and shows they're releasing. It's the Disney executives. So Kevin Feige, I don't think it's his fault, really. I think he is just doing what Disney wants him to do, which is release all this content and try and tie it all together. So yeah, that's the big problem. There's just too much stuff, but that doesn't necessarily mean that it has to be bad. There's a reason that it's just not working, and most of this content is just not that good. One reason is because they haven't figured out a good formula for the TV shows. They're all terrible and they have no idea what they're doing. All the shows start off and they kind of have an interesting premise. There's something interesting about them, right? They got pitched and they got accepted by Marvel. So there was a good thought there, but then after the first 2 episodes, they have no idea what to do. They meander, they try to flesh out the concepts that they introduced in the first 2 episodes, but that never works. It just feels like we're stuck and we're meandering in those middle episodes. And then all the Disney executives who want their bonuses look at their watches and they're like, oh, it's episode 6 time, we need to do a finale. And then they throw some finale together and it feels super rushed and cheap, and where it just comes out of nowhere. They have no idea how to crescendo their shows at all. So it leads to this experience that's kind of cool at the beginning, and then it just stumbles over itself and dies. And it's honestly kind of sad because they're sinking millions of dollars into these severely mediocre shows that I don't think anyone is rewatching. I would not rewatch WandaVision or Loki and definitely not Falcon and the Winter Soldier. So most of these shows are just wandering around aimlessly, trying to pick up some money from the stupid people who subscribe to Disney Plus, and is not working. And when it comes to the movies, I think it's even sadder, because at least with the TV shows, it's like, oh, we've never done this before, so that's why they're not working. But with the movies, it's like, dude, you've been doing this since 2008. Okay, why can't you throw together some decent movies? That's because they're trying to introduce all these new characters and teams and concepts, and they're trying to build out the universe more. They're trying to spread the base wider so that they can have an even bigger finale later, like Avengers Endgame, if they even do that. Like, I don't even know what they're building towards. We knew in all three of the previous phases that they're building towards an Avengers movie, Civil War, and then an Endgame style movie. But here, it's like, what are you even doing? I think they said they're gonna do like Secret Wars or like Secret Invasion, but they also want to do like things with the Celestials, and then they have the multiverse. They keep trying to introduce the multiverse and tease at that in like Loki and Doctor Strange and the Multiverse of Madness, but nothing is happening there. So I don't really know where they're going with this, and I'm starting to suspect that they don't know either, because they're sort of just meandering around aimlessly, teasing random things that may or may not go places, and I'm kind of done with it, because I wouldn't have minded if the whole MCU just ended after Endgame. Okay, so if you really want to keep people hooked, you have to keep making good movies that are leading up toward big events, and right now they have nothing announced, no big team-up movie or event-type movie, just a bunch of spin-off TV shows and movies about new characters from super niche parts of the comics that nobody cares about. So I'm a little worried that the MCU is not going to be very good anymore, or is going to continue to not be very good anymore. Anyways, guys, hope you enjoyed the video. If you want to see more content on the channel, make sure to subscribe, and I hope to see you back next time I publish a video.